I see a quorum, colleagues. We're starting a little later than normal. We are today beginning or continuing with our review, understanding Order 108 of the economic stimulus package, and we're delighted to have with us today Government Minister, the Honourable John Baird, Minister of Transport, Infrastructure and Communities. And there's a great deal of interest out there in Parliament and across Canada about the stimulus package. And I just wanted to note that as we get into this, I've been working with the staff to generate a picture of the procedure that is and isn't there surrounding the stimulus package. There's been a modification to the normal process of authorization of government spending for the purpose of expediting the stimulus package. And as a result, there may be some procedural adjustments that this committee should be undertaking to respond to that. Having said that, we're very much looking forward to the Minister's testimony today and the information we will be receiving next week. The Minister is here only for the first hour, so I'm going to have to be very strict with my own speaking and the time of members. So we'll go right to the Minister. Welcome, Mr. Baird, and we're very interested in hearing your comments on the stimulus package.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased to be here. I appeared before this committee a number of times when I was President of the Treasury Board, and I'm glad to be back. Obviously, we're going through some very uncertain economic times, not just in Canada, but in throughout the industrialized world. We believe the government can play an important role in responding to these economic challenges. They didn't originate in Canada. They originated in the United States and then have spread around the world. But we are committed to do our part to help stimulate economic growth and to get Canadians working again. Infrastructure is one part of that program. We have a number of important initiatives designed to help put a much-needed shot in the arm of the Canadian economy. They range from the Building Canada plan. A lot of that funds go directly to municipalities through the gas tax. There's the GST rebate, and then there's what I call Building Canada proper, where we work with provinces and territories constructively on identifying and getting projects moving forward with different proponents. In many cases, they are municipalities. There is a huge need for infrastructure renewal in this country. There is a huge infrastructure debt deficit, and it's a great opportunity to ensure that not just that we put Canadians to work in the short term, but that we come forward with measures that will allow us to come out of this economic difficulty sooner than they do in the United States and around the world, and that we come out stronger, better able to respond to some of the challenges. If you looked at the GDP decline, it was much less pronounced in Canada, but nonetheless it's a major concern. That's why we're moving aggressively to identify projects, to get agreement, and then to move forward as expeditiously as possible. In most of the infrastructure projects that we'll engage in, the Government of Canada doesn't hold the shovel. Rather, that's held by provinces, by municipalities, or other authorities, whether it be a port, an airport, a convention centre, a crown, you name it. So we're doing the best we can to respond to the need to cut red tape and to speed up the process that will give a federal green light. We met with the premiers and first ministers. That went tremendously well. We came forward with a 5-point action plan, which received unanimous support, which is quite remarkable, from Liberal, NDP, Conservative premiers from coast to coast to coast, and that is, I think, speaks to the quality of the work that's been done, both by parliamentary committees and by the public service, whether it's the Navigable Waters Act, whether it's having one environmental assessment process, whether it's cutting red tape, not just at the public service level, but the political level. Too often decisions take an inordinate amount of time. The good news is we are, I think, generally speaking, working tremendously well with our provincial partners. Where there had been acrimony, there is, generally speaking, a much better level of engagement and agreement, and I think that that is what Canadians expect in these difficult times. We have come forward with a significant amount of infrastructure projects and plans. They also, though, include things outside of the traditional involvement, whether it's colleges and universities, which will be managed by the Minister of Industry and the Minister of State at Industry, whether it's support for Via Rail, whether it's support for a good number of other initiatives, whether it's environmental, whether it be recreational, or the more traditional involvement of infrastructure. Since January, just in the last month and a half, we have given the green light to 480 community projects worth more than $1.5 billion, primarily in Ontario, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia. Whether it's the Evergreen Line that the Premier and the Premier of British Columbia and the Prime Minister announced, whether it's cleaning up the St. John Harbour in New Brunswick or new water treatment facilities in Nunavut. We're doing our best to give the green lights as quickly as possible. The funding will flow within 30 days of us receiving an invoice. We've said to all of our partners that we will be as flexible as possible and pay our bills within 30 days so that these projects can move forward as expeditiously as possible. In Ontario, we announced more than 289 projects last month, totaling $1 billion. That's good news, and they're in communities of under 100,000 right across the province. There is a good tripartite agreement with the municipalities, the province, and the federal government. In British Columbia, we announced 41 projects for about $175 million. In Saskatchewan, $90 million was announced to work on 46 different projects. This is just a start. We've had are undertaking extensive consultation and decisions with our provincial municipal partners around the country. I'm very pleased now to take your good counsel and questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I'll go to Mr. McTague for 8 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today. Minister, I trust you've read the motion by our colleague, the finance critic, the member for Markham Unionville. He plans to introduce today. The motion will require the President of the Treasury Board to inform the House every time your government uses any of the $3 billion fund that these reports will also be accessible to Canadians to see. Minister, do you support this compromise?
I haven't seen the motion as yet.
So you have not seen the motion tabled by my colleague in the House of Commons. Let me ask you then, you've talked about a number of announcements here, specific to the question of accountability. Does your department have in any way, shape or form a list of projects that it plans to access through this $3 billion fund? And if so, what are they?
Well, I think there'll be projects that are outlined in our economic action plan. I think we've clearly laid out a group of initiatives. I don't have a particular list to table today.
You have no.
What I don't want to do, and I don't mean to be confrontational, but I think when you're working in partnership with the province and municipality, it's I think distinctly unhelpful if one tries to jump the gun and proceed ahead. When you have a partnership, we'll announce them in cooperation with the provinces.
Yeah. Mr. Barrett, Minister, I appreciate the fact that you are suggesting that there's other places that you'd like to perhaps look at spending this money, but in 26 days from now, you have before you a government which will begin a $33 million expenditure on a daily basis, and you can't provide this committee, nor apparently any of your ministers, any list of priorities. Can I ask you, how, in any way, shape or form, do you intend to spend $3 billion? What's its purpose, and how can you assure Canadians that you will meet the test of your own party and your own statements in the House of Commons in previous years about transparency and accountability?
If I did, you're an Ontario member of Parliament as I am. I think if I were to unilaterally jump the gun and proceed to announce projects, I don't think either my Premier or the Minister of Infrastructure in Ontario would be terribly pleased with that. We will be spending the $3 billion with respect to my department on the Economic Stimulus Fund. We will spend it on the Environmental Fund, and we will spend it on the RINC program. Those are 3 specific parts of our Economic Action Plan. And that will be the focus of our efforts. We also identified in the Economic Action Plan accelerating various components of Building Canada, and that would include those as well.
Minister, I'm wondering if any of what you just announced here has anything to do with the $3 billion. I mean, we're left in a position where we have absolutely no idea how you or your government intends to spend money. I'm hoping that it's not a question of flying over in a helicopter and throwing money out to wherever it should happen to land. You must know by now, Minister, where that money is to be spent and how critical it is for the public to have faith in the trust of our institutions for you as Minister today to tell us specifically how their money is going to be spent, especially for the intended purposes that we all agree with to stimulate the economy. Minister, Where's that money going?
I identified 3 specific programs as part of Canada's Economic Action Plan, and that's exactly where it will go in my department.
Minister, when you were Treasury Board, responsible for Treasury Board, you came with a strong message of transparency and accountability. I'm wondering how you can claim that a $3 billion expenditure, the 3 points that you've just made here have nothing to do with this $3 billion, if I'm to understand this is the greater part of the budget, how you can make the claim of transparency when in fact you have not given to Canadians or parliamentarians anything more than a request for a blank check. How do you expect us to have the ability to have confidence in what you're doing if we have absolutely no idea how to allocate that money or how that money is to be allocated? And your department tends to have a first crack at these things, particularly given it had $3 billion left over in the previous budget, which it didn't use.
Well, I'll be very clear and very specific. We identified 3 initiatives with respect to infrastructure as part of our Economic Action Plan. The Economic Stimulus Fund, which will work with provinces and generally municipalities. The $1 billion Environmental Fund for green initiatives. And the RINC program to deal with recreational activities. Those are 3 specific programs outlined in our Economic Action Plan that those funds could support. Other Cabinet colleagues, like the Minister of Industry with respect to post-secondary education, or the Minister of Human Resources Development with respect to social housing, they will all be specifically the initiatives contained in the Economic Action Plan. We do not have authority. We do not have authority internally within government to simply write people checks unless there's an established program that has been outlined in the budget and approved by Treasury Board.
Minister, what you're suggesting here is a brand new, entirely different program. You're asking Parliament to now sign a blank check on something we have no idea as to where this is going to be spent. We need specifics. We can't operate as a committee, and our Parliament cannot function if we have people simply saying, we need the money and we'll tell you about it a little later. I appreciate the fact that the Auditor General will have an opportunity to look at this, or that it's been passed by the Auditor General, but you know full well that for 18 months she won't have an opportunity to pass judgment on what you're about to spend. Let me ask you once again.
But it's absolutely no different, though, than the current Building Canada process. Parliament authorizes funding for Building Canada, and that money is then allocated after. So you have exactly the same amount of information, I would suggest, that you had last year, the year before, or the many years that you were in government.
Minister, in our time in government, money was actually spent for programs that we put forward. You allowed $3 billion to lapse in the last government. If you look at the very clearly, sir, last year, let me finish. Last year, you lapsed $2 billion. That money is now gone. This year, you still have $3 billion in approved funding that you still haven't spent. This money can already be used to stimulate the economy and create jobs. What possible reason do you or your government now need for an additional $3 billion blank check? Why don't you use the money that you already currently have?
Well, I'm very pleased to respond. The money is not gone. Capital spending can be rolled over, so it does not disappear. I think our government has been more successful than the previous government. For example, the MRIF program was announced with $1 billion in funding on August the 20th, 2003. It took almost 3 years for all the agreements with provinces and territories to be signed. In fact, with British Columbia, it was 2006. In 2005, 2006, 2 years after the program was announced, approximately only $11.5 million had been spent against a budget of $134 million. 91% of the program's budget for the first 2 years had lapsed and was rolled over. I am not satisfied with the speed with which decisions and approvals are given for infrastructure. I was sent to this department with a mandate to make things happen. We are working constructively with provinces and municipalities to identify projects, to give the federal green light, to let them go forward as quickly as possible.
If this money that you've just announced is for budget 2009, why do the main estimates say that the Treasury Board vote 35 exists to, quote, supplement other appropriations and to provide any appropriate minister appropriations for initiatives announced in the budget of January 2009? The Treasury Board briefing that we had the other day, which I appreciate that some of you may have been a part of, confirmed this money could be used on anything by any department. So how then can you claim this is anything but a blank check?
Well, I'm telling you very specifically that it would go for initiatives with under the Canada our Economic Action Plan. I have 3 specific examples that I cited within my own department, which would be allowed.
Minister, I fail to understand that you are being specific when you provided no details. Either you have a specific outline plan for the $3 billion or you don't. Don't put words in the context of saying that you've got specifics here when you've got nothing. Now, either you have something and you're going to tell the committee now, or the Auditor General is going to tell us in 18 months, or we're going to lose what's important, the trust of Canadians in how we spend money. Minister, you campaigned on accountability and transparency. You and your party, you won on those slogans. I want that transparency, I want that accountability, and I want it here before this committee. When are you prepared to tell us the specifics of that $3 billion for the stimulus program?
I've outlined the 3 specific examples when my department where these funds could be used. One thing I can guarantee you, those monies will not end up in the bank account of a political party.
Guarantees. I want truth, Mr. I want to see where this money is being spent. Let's not talk about the past and future.
Time.
This is your responsibility. When are you going to live up to it, Minister?
That's time. I've got to go to the next member. Monsieur Laframboise, for 8 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Laframboise, you have 8 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Minister, earlier you talked about the amounts of money that has been transferred over to the provinces. You didn't talk about Quebec. Allow me to quote a news release that was published by the Canadian Municipalities Association of Quebec. They condemn negotiations between Canada and Quebec, even though more than 4,000 shovel-ready projects, municipalities have not seen the money come in. Our cities are very concerned because the unemployment rates are rising. The majority of mayors have said that they are ready to move and that they have been ready to implement their projects for the last 2 years. And because of the economic situation, they need to be acting urgently. All federal and provincial elected officials must understand that the money must be spent within 24 months. What will MPs be able to tell our mayors, and what will we be able to tell them with regard to those signed agreements? I must remind you that municipalities fall within provincial jurisdiction. We respect provincial jurisdiction. The government of Quebec and the National Legislative Assembly was very clear. We must work with them in compliance with provincial jurisdiction. I'd like to see things move a lot quicker. We will be identifying projects with the government of Quebec, and as I said, I have a very good relationship with Minister Jérôme Forget as well as with Minister Normando. There is cooperation between the provinces and the federal government. It's never easy. To conduct intergovernmental relations. And in Quebec, the process has been set up and has been established for some years now. I respect Quebec statutes. We have to work with their government. I am absolutely certain that the government of Quebec wants to make decisions as soon as possible regarding new investments to spur job growth, to build new infrastructure, and we will continue to work with them. We've accomplished a lot, and we will continue down that path. Minister, I also respect provincial jurisdiction, but municipalities have questions about federal-provincial agreements. When the Liberals were in power, there were agreements in effect. But what's the delay? Are there requirements that are not being met by Quebec? Because the municipalities are the ones who are being hard hit, and they are ready to get projects going. They've been waiting for the last 2 years, so what's the delay?
Component de Chantier Canada.
Under the Building Canada plan, the communities components, there are about $210 million to support those types of projects. I know that the government of Quebec will work with us and that we will achieve progress We received many projects from Ontario, from Saskatchewan, and from British Columbia. I am well aware of the importance that municipalities place on having a good agreement with the province. We not only work with the ministers responsible for infrastructure, but those ministers also have to work with other departments, and we also have to work with other departments. And we have to respect the will of the National Assembly as a whole. I respect this. Things never move as quickly as we wish. And yes, the pace has to be accelerated. Great. So what you're saying is that you're not the one responsible for the delay, it's Quebec. No, I'm simply saying that there's a system in place and we have to work within that system. We are waiting for more clarifications, more details. These investments are shared. They are shared between the federal government and the province. We work closely with them. In fact, our deputy minister was in Quebec this week. Just as recently as Monday, he had a great meeting with his counterpart. And we discussed with their officials. Now, let's get to the $4 billion fund. It's said that if you do not sign an agreement with the provinces, you will be able to keep that money and invest elsewhere. That's clear. Do you intend to make sure that you will do your utmost to sign an agreement with Quebec? Absolutely. So they may risk losing the money if there isn't an agreement? Is that what you're saying? No, with the $4 billion. Of the $4 billion, perhaps $1 billion will be spent in Quebec. We've got other commitments in other provinces and municipalities. There are many projects in federal areas, such as in airports, in ports, in Sept-Îles, in Quebec City, in Montreal. We are going to spend in areas of federal jurisdiction. Our priority, however, our most significant priority is to work with the provinces so that the municipalities can get to work now. That's how we'll proceed. I've received many requests within my own jurisdiction, requests to refurbish airports and other places. I've also received requests for cultural programs. If we can work with the province, we can go much further, and we can create many more jobs. That's our first priority. Therefore, you do want to sign an agreement with Quebec, but if there is no agreement, you are going to act simply within your own jurisdiction exclusively. Is that it?
My first objective is to work constructively with Quebec. What we won't be doing with any province with this new funds is, spend 2 years negotiating a framework agreement. That is, we don't have the time in this economic situation. What we do hope to do is to work cooperatively with the Government of Quebec and establish a group of projects that could be funded expeditiously so that Canadians and Quebecers can get the much-needed shot in the arm. I'm not going to contemplate, failure. I am committed to do my level best to work with the province. What we don't have time is to spend a year or 2 years debating wording of contribution agreements, debating whether should we fund this or should we fund that. We need to move expeditiously. I think and strongly believe that that is the view of the province of Quebec. That's the view. The average Quebec family wants to see us work constructively and get results.
Thank you. Thank you. Monsieur Gourde, pour 8 minutes.
Mr. Gould, you have 8 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish to thank Minister Baird for being here this morning. This is a time of crisis, and we know that the minister's time is very precious. You are saying that our government is investing at unprecedented levels, particularly in Canadian municipalities. correct? Yes. Yes, with the gas tax and with the GST rebate, we are investing in collaborative projects. We have injected historically high levels of investment into the Building Canada program. And we have to get moving even more quickly because of the global economic crisis. Minister, can you provide me some comments on how these new initiatives that you talked about earlier and provided for in Budget 2009 will stimulate the economy and enhance infrastructure?
I think that if we make important needed investments, I'll use the example right here in the town where we are. We're working in cooperation with the province and the city on building a new convention centre. This will create a significant amount of jobs in the short term, put a lot of money into the economy, both for labour and for materials, whether that be concrete, cement, whether it be other building materials. But when that is complete, when that new building is complete, we will be able to give a real boost to the tourism sector, a real boost to retail, to hospitality, and the associated benefits that come with that. So it will allow us to not just to create jobs in the short term, but into the future because of that investment. If we can reduce congestion on our roads with investments in public transit, that will not just improve the quality of life, that just not have environmental benefits, but it'll also make our economy more competitive. And that is important. If we make investments in aeroports, if we make investments in ports, that allow goods and services and people to be moved around. We can create jobs in the short term, get more money in the economy, but we can also, when we come out of this economic downturn, be able to be stronger than we went in, and we're committed to that.
Monsieur le ministre, comment pouvons-nous...
Mr. Minister, how can we accelerate core funding to provinces and territories? And what are the challenges for our provinces and territories, and what is the objective of this funding?
Under Building Canada, every province is entitled to $25 million a year for a total of $175 million a year. The process is very quick. They just have to submit a letter outlining the projects they'd like to spend the money on, and we can flow the money. We have offered to all provinces that if they would like to accelerate that and seek the full $175 million, that we're prepared to do that. We've got a good amount of support. Some provinces will want it all right away. Others will want it over 2 or 3 years, and we make the offer on the acceleration. It's been generally positively received. It depends on the nature of the project. If you're dealing with something in northern Canada, obviously the construction season is shorter, and you've got to get materials in and out by with significant transportation. If you're looking at simply resurfacing a road, you can move obviously more expeditiously. If you're looking at, as we will in Human Resource Development Canada with social housing retrofits, they can be done far more expeditiously than building a new $100 million building. So I think what we've offered directly to all the provinces, that we're prepared to be as helpful as we can in accelerating the existing investments that are there, in addition to the new initiatives that we've come forward with. Sometimes there's a significant amount of planning that has to be done, so engineers can get to work, architects can get to work, the planners can get to work, which is good. We also know that I think the best way to get infrastructure going in the future is to make decisions now. That even if it's going to take 2 or 3 years, let's not take 2 or 3 years to make the decision, and then 2 or 3 years to get the project going. And the good news is we've got a good amount of interest from around the country, from provinces on this. That acceleration, I think, is just another effort on our part to be constructive and helpful.
Monsieur le ministre, il y a beaucoup de discussions au sujet de la nécessité
There is a lot of discussion surrounding the need for all orders of government to work together. What is our government doing to reinforce this cooperation so that provinces and territories receive funding as soon as possible?
I think in most cases it's about leadership from the top, and where there's a cooperative spirit on all three levels of sides, on the municipal side, on the provincial side, and the federal side, things can happen. We can go farther, faster. That takes a lot of personal engagement. I've met with all of the premiers. I've met with all of the ministers, all the provinces and territories, and underlined that. And generally speaking, it's been well received. We've made a good amount of progress in the last month and a half, 2 months, on getting projects announced so that municipalities and provinces can get tenders out, so they get shovels in the ground as soon as possible. It does take a lot of personal engagement in your province in Quebec. I personally get involved with our cabinet colleague, Christian Paradis, to work constructively with the provincial government. I think it's been well received. Often you have it's tough to get decisions made when you have a good number of approvals. We've done our part at the federal level to try to expedite those, and we've challenged municipalities, we've challenged provinces to do everything that they can, and that's I think going to be good news. I can't obviously speed up a provincial or a municipal process. That'll be up to them. Sometimes it goes quicker, and sometimes it goes slower than we like, but we're working awfully hard.
Juste un petit commentaire en terminant.
Just a brief comment before concluding. With respect to the rebate of the gas taxes was a very popular measure in our ridings, and I know that it was of great assistance to our municipalities. The rebate allowed them to improve their sewer systems, their water systems, and I hope that program is going to be renewed. Will it?
Yes, we announced in last year's budget that the gas tax transfer would be made permanent. It increased this year, doubled this year, and rather than when we go into an economic hard time, rather than cutting our transfer partners, we're actually increasing support. But with this new economic stimulus money, what we want to do is how do we stretch it as far as we can? If we can get provinces and municipalities to join us in matching our investments, we can create 3 times as many jobs. We can get 3 times as much money, 3 times as much of a shot in the arm. Some municipalities have said they just don't have the money. We came forward with a $2 billion initiative to provide low-interest loans to some municipalities who are in need of that. The good news is there's no doubt in my mind that these programs will be oversubscribed and we'll have to turn down a lot of great projects. So that speaks to the demand and the cooperation willingness that there is out there.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, for 8 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister Baird. Mr. Baird, there's 2 sort of themes that have come through your remarks today. One is the flexibility, and one is the fast-tracking. Now, I too look forward to the rollout of this money. I know you're aware of my riding. You've been there, and you're always welcome there as long as you bring your checkbook, which you often have.
Appreciate the warm welcome you give me.
Yes, well, the socialist paradise of Manitoba, you're always welcome there. Let me tell you, though, Mr. Minister, that there's some fears that even though you're speaking about flexibility and fast tracking, there's still silos of money that that the infrastructure spending finds itself in, that is leading to roadblocks, to rigidity and red tape still. So, I'd ask you to extend the spirit of flexibility to accommodate some of these concerns. And perhaps giving you a specific could help you understand what I mean. I represent a very low-income riding. Right in the heart of that riding is the University of Winnipeg. Now, the University of Winnipeg is building a big recreation center that will have, in fact, a skating rink, etc. If we wanted to avail ourselves of the arena funding, the skating rink funding that you spoke about as one of your spending priorities, we may run into this barrier that because it's part of a university, even though it's servicing the whole community, this low-income community, you may send us somewhere else that doesn't have the same fast-tracking capability. I mean, can you give any assurance that you're willing to be even more flexible than the current plan seems to dictate and accommodate these kind of needs? We have shovel-ready, in fact, we have hammer-ready projects that could start tomorrow with that kind of flexibility preferred by your office.
Well, I appreciate you introducing me to the president of that university earlier today. And he and you both outlined their project. That's probably a project that would be more suitable to the $2 billion fund for colleges and universities. But we're trying to take what we're doing on the cutting red tape and fast-tracking the work that our officials have done at Transport Infrastructure, and what can we do to roll that over to the college and university funding as well, to make it just as expeditious. We're going to have to obviously keep a close eye on this so that the red tape is cut and the decisions are made. What happens, though, is that the commitment from the in that case from the federal and provincial government to work cooperatively together to make decisions is absolutely central. I think Premier Dew had an excellent relationship with the previous Liberal government. He's an excellent relationship with our government, and I think that'll make all the difference in making things happen for people in Manitoba.
But I think right across the country, Minister, you would admit there's some projects that are the real low-hanging fruit. I mean, they're actually, some have actually even started. And given the economic climate, major corporate donors have backed out and stalled projects. So, I mean, what if you had a project where the hole was in the ground, the province had already funded half of it, a couple of corporate donors backed out, and for a couple of $1 million we could trigger a $60 million project? I mean, I think all the rules should go out the window in a case like that. And that's a concrete example. $60 million project, $30 million worth of provincial funding, and for the loss of a couple of sponsors, that project is stalled. Isn't that a perfect role for the federal government to step in?
We've got some fundamental principles that the existing, particularly the new funding, is built on. One is that we much prefer to have partners because we can go a lot farther, faster. In the case of the example you raised, it's at a much better ratio than a third, a third, a third.
Right.
The second issue is we want it to be incremental. We don't simply want a municipality or province to take any new money and just withdraw money out so that there's not a single new job created. Would we be prepared to look at something that was stalled and that would otherwise not be able to proceed? We can certainly look at that. Mm-hmm. What I don't want to do, though, is to take if City X has already committed and is already going to spend $1 million on fixing up a bridge or a road, I just simply don't want to give them a third of that money and then have them take a third of theirs out and put it in their bank, because then we're not creating any new jobs. We're not providing any additional stimulus, which we're committed to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that wouldn't be what we're looking for. I guess what we're looking at out there in the field, waiting for this money to roll, is we don't really know what the rules are yet, and it seems every time we ask for specifics, the rules are almost as flexible as the flexibility that you promised in the program delivery. I'm not sure people are sure who to approach, what silo of money that they're even asking for. I mean, where do we go for the hard facts about applying for this money to get it into the communities quickly?
We will be coming forward in short order with the specifics on that. I think we'll take an asymmetrical approach on a province-by-province basis. Obviously, if you've got a province like PEI, their pool of money is demonstrably smaller than a province like Ontario. If we can sit down with a province and identify a group of projects that can move right away and get people, and get going in a matter of a few weeks, obviously that's better than putting out a call for proposals and waiting 6 months for them to be evaluated before you move. So I think with a province like Manitoba, where we have a pretty decent working relationship with the provincial government, I suspect we'll probably sit down, survey the landscape, and then make a collective decision on how to proceed. For example, in Ontario, it's a significantly higher amount of money, so I would expect there'd probably be some public calls for expressions of interest. We'll be speaking to that in the very near future. I've also every day after question period, I head back to my office with a list of 5 or 6 suggestions from Conservative, Liberal, Bloc, and NDP members of Parliament, which is great. I mean, that's what members of Parliament's job is. And I've had a good number of suggestions, and I take them right back. And we even act on them sometimes.
Hey, we like to see.
Thank you. For the record, I think the Minister was referring to the Honourable Lloyd Axworthy, who's joined us as an observer here today, former Minister and former Member of Parliament. I just wanted the record to show that. I'll go. He's not keeping an eye on us. I'll go. Ms. Hall-Findlay for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Minister, for your time today. My colleague asked earlier about the list, and I'm afraid I'm still not clear. You mentioned 3 large buckets within the budget, but for this extra $3 billion, and I'll just note that I'm a little confused because earlier you mentioned $4 billion, so I now have become a little unclear about the actual amount. But using $3 billion for the discussion now, you mentioned 3 large buckets that are already discussed in the budget, but now we're dealing with a $3 billion that has no specificity to it. Do you have a list of projects for this $3 billion? Yes or no?
We have identified, I have identified 3 or 4 areas.
No. I'm sorry, Minister, for interrupting, but my question was very specific. Do you have, I'm not asking necessarily for you to give me that right now, because you indicated a concern about some of the projects. Do you have a list of projects for this $3 billion?
We've got a good number of projects where support has been requested. What we have to do.
Do you have a list of projects for it? But you're asking to have this money spent right away. So I'm assuming that to be able to spend the money right away, there has to be some work already done to determine where that money is going to be spent. So do you have a list?
I've got a long list. I've got $18 billion request for Metrolinx in the Greater Toronto Area. I've got
I'm talking about the $3 billion that we're asking.
Well, that's not all entirely within my department. I identified 3 new programs that are coming forward. That if those proponents are able to move expeditiously and get shovels in the ground, and they need reimbursement, they need money put up front to make those things happen. I don't want them to have to wait. I am not going to make a unilateral announcement with respect to those projects because we work in cooperation with the provinces. For example, in Quebec. I'm not going to simply say to Quebec without consulting with the Quebec government, here are the projects we're going to fund. That will be done cooperatively with the province and with municipalities and other proponents.
So is the answer then that you do not have a list?
I have a list. I have a list of a lot of projects that are ready to go. I get 5 or 6 things added to that list every day.
So my next question is, if you have a list, if you said you have a long list of projects ready to go, will you show us that list?
I'll happy to table the Metrolinx proposal. It's $18 billion worth of requests.
That was not what I asked. Will you share with us
share with you that list.
That long list of projects that you have ready to go?
I'll share with you the Metrolinx, the requests that I've been receiving.
So are you saying no, that you will not share that list with us?
I have just said that we've received requests for funding. Under those new funds, decisions have to be made in cooperation with the province.
But you want the money now.
You either have to have confidence in the government or you don't. You voted confidence in the government 61 times. You can't be a little bit pregnant.
If we can, we have asked you to be here today to answer our questions, and I'm not actually getting clarity. You have now confirmed that you have a long list of projects ready to go. I hope so, in the sense that if you're asking for money to be spent right away, the homework will have been done to be able to spend that money right away. So I'm reassured by the fact that you've now said you have a long list of projects ready to go.
And it gets longer every day.
My second question is, will you share that list with the other members of the government that is being asked to approve this spending? Will you, the government, we are in opposition, will you share that list with parliamentarians?
I'll be happy to share with some of the requests that I've received.
No. So are you saying no, you will not share that list with us?
Every announcement we made will be made public and be completely open and transparent.
No. Will you share with us that list before you are asking us, before you ask us to vote? I'm not going to unilaterally, go.
Why not? Because
if you're asking us to spend this money, you have a list. Why will you not share that list with parliamentarians when you are asking us to approve the spending?
Because I have to work cooperatively with the provinces. You have a big decision to make.
The provinces are saying you can't tell the rest of the parliamentarians what that list is?
No, we're going to work constructively with provinces and agree on a series of projects to support. I am not going to. I mean, it's you know, you have a big decision to make.
No, but let me get this straight.
You got a big.
The provinces are going to be beneficiaries of this, yes?
Mm-hmm.
We, as a government, are being asked to approve a $3 billion spend.
You're not the
and you're
government.
saying that we are being asked to approve it, even though there is a list of projects that you have, and you will not share that list with the rest of the Parliament. That's
It sounds like you
said.
have a very big decision to make. No, you have the big decision.
No, we all collectively have a very big decision to make, and I would think that even the
I'm not undecided,
provinces
though.
that would like us to approve this would be willing to share the list of projects. Is there something secret about this list? Is there something that we should know? You've said you have a long list of projects. Will you share that with the rest of Parliament in order for us to approve this spending?
Here's what we have to do. We have to work constructively with provinces and with municipalities. I don't think it is constructive, for example, in our case of Ontario, to put my provincial counterpart, on the receiving end line of a big list. We'll sit down and cooperatively work out arrangements with provinces and municipalities. That's the way it has always run, and that's the way we intend to move it this day. The funding that we've asked for to get these projects out the door is being requested. They are all specifically under the Economic Action Plan. The moment decisions are made, they will be made public.
Thank you. Monsieur Laframboise.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, on a few different occasions, you said that there are shovel-ready projects ready to go. These are new projects. You are well aware that to build a municipal project, there are timelines. Are you referring to projects that have already been budgeted, that are underway? What projects are you referring to exactly?
I think what we're looking to identify, and what we are identifying now, are projects that are ready to go, or can be ready to go in a matter of weeks or months, that would not otherwise proceed. If a municipality wanted to build a new road or do sewer upgrades, and it's already its intent to move forward with that this year. Obviously, we don't want to simply replace money that would already spent. We'd like this to be projects that they had envisaged to do in the future but didn't have the funding for. We want it to be as incremental. We'll be flexible on what that definition of incremental is, but it's got to be projects that would not otherwise proceed. I'll give you an example. The Premier of New Brunswick and the Minister of Finance in New Brunswick came forward with a stimulus plan in early December, about $1.2 billion of support. Obviously, that's new money, and we'll be flexible in that. But what I don't want to do is, if there is a sewer project that's already scheduled to go forward, I just don't want the city or the municipality to pull their money out and put our money in, and then no new jobs be created. What we want to do is to stimulate the economy for what more is to get additional money in the system, additional employees. I think you all agree that would be a constructive thing.
But you know that in Quebec, cities have to present their projects 3 years in advance of the implementation of a project. They have to outline their plans very clearly. So are you saying that all of those 3-year plans will not be funded? It's going to make things rather complicated, no?
If a city had 10 projects that they identified that they want to move forward with in the next 3-5 years, and they're only able to move forward with 2 or 3 of them in the next 2 years, if they wanted to move forward with items that are a little bit farther down in their capital plan, those would be eligible.
Okay.
And we're very we want a degree of flexibility. The fundamental idea is that we want to have new projects go forward that we otherwise wouldn't go forward with, and we're very happy. I'm very happy to receive counsel and advice if there are some unique circumstances. We want a degree of flexibility, but I guess one of the foundations is we'd like it to be something that otherwise wouldn't happen.
Vous avez une latitude, vous avez une marge de manœuvre.
So you do have some leeway. My second question is on infrastructure and community equipment. Minister Labelle, Minister responsible for economic development, said that his department is ready to receive applications. However, there aren't any resources available. no forms available. You said that Minister Paradis had intervened. So who's going to be responsible in Quebec? Is it Minister Labelle or Minister Paradis?
I work constructively with all my cabinet colleagues. The political minister in each region is obviously one of the principal advisors that I would turn to for advice and counsel. Mr. Labelle works for the Regional Economic Development Agency for the regions of Quebec. Obviously, that might be a delivery agent for one or more initiatives, and we'll be coming forward in very short order with some specifics on that.
Est-ce qu'il y aura des formulaires disponibles? Est-ce que les municipalités pourront faire des...
Forms be available? Will provinces be able to draw up an application using a template?
Municipalities, because that's not permissible. So we'll work constructively with Quebec on a process to follow through.
Merci.
What I hope is that because of that extra step in the province of Quebec, which I'm not critical of, I don't pass any judgment. That's legitimately the National Assembly and the government of Quebec's perfectly in their right. Is what I'm looking to the government of Quebec is what can we do to speed up a process so that decisions can be made and we can get people working. I think that that the economy, the situation of the unemployed or underemployed, the uncertainty in the economy, hopefully will lend itself for some good cooperation and some in an expeditious time frame.
Merci. Et, mais par contre, vous avez compris.
You understand that some projects will be delayed. So I hope in your planning you have allowed for sufficient time that will be accorded to municipalities to unveil their plans. You know that they are going to need at least 3 or 4 months to get things rolling. So they will get some time to be able to submit a project. As you said, you have enough money for 2 or 3 projects and possibly 3 or 4 other projects, but will there be enough for all of them?
I'll seek the counsel of the government officials and ministers in the government of Quebec on that. I do know that these new initiatives will be like every other government program, that they'll be oversubscribed, that there'll always be more demand than there are funds. That won't be any different in this. What I think we want to do is to challenge people for the need to identify projects expeditiously. We're accepting the challenge to make decisions expeditiously. If people want to take 6 months to review their projects and submit applications, that's probably not going to be a good candidate for the stimulus fund, because we want to get projects going as quickly as possible. In the case of Quebec, where municipalities have to work through the province, I am confident that we can identify a process that will move quickly. If you have any specific advice or counsel that would assist me, I would certainly welcome it. I served in the provincial cabinet. I served as a member of a provincial legislature. Our government doesn't have the edicts that all the decisions are made in Ottawa. We have to take, what works in PEI won't work in Quebec, and vice versa. We're certainly committed to do that. I try to respect that. It takes a little bit longer, but it's just the reality, which we don't have a problem with.
Thank you. Before I recognize Mr. Brown, I just wanted to say that the minister had agreed to be with us for an hour. We did start a few minutes late, and the minister did come on relatively short notice. We're continuing our consideration of this matter at our next meeting on Tuesday with the Treasury Board President, and there are officials from the Minister's Department here, whom I'll introduce later, who are staying. So I'll go to Mr. Brown, and when the Minister feels that it's time to go, it would be, we will accept his departure when that time comes. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, and I'm going to share my time with Mr. Jean so we can both get a question for the Minister. Just 3 quick things that if you could comment on. One, as a former city councillor, I think the excitement with this record infrastructure investment is terrific. There seems to be a lot of interest, and I think you'll get more projects than anyone can even handle. One thing that got a particularly pleasant reaction was the low-cost loans. If you could expand upon that a little bit, and also if you could put this in a historic perspective, is this the largest infrastructure investment in Canadian history? And lastly, if you could comment on when you were in the provincial government, when there was infrastructure agreements with the federal government that was previously Liberal, did they allow provincial input? Because what they're suggesting today is to announce this $3 billion list and ignore an opportunity for input with your Premier, Dalton McGuinty. Is that something that has ever occurred before, where we announce lists unilaterally and ignore the wishes of other levels of government?
You've been a strong lobbyist for projects in Barrie. You presented your city, a few of your city councillors were in, presenting some projects that were shovel-ready about 2 weeks ago. I suspect your provincial colleague, Aileen Carroll, would be quite angry if you or I began to make announcements in Ottawa without them. They would think that was in bad faith and was not constructive to federal-provincial relations. What George Smitherman has said to me is what partnership is about is working together, making decisions together, and making announcements together, not one side trying to get a communications or PR advantage by scooping the other side. And we are committed to working constructively. I can tell you we announced 289 projects around the province. I think they went very smoothly in all but 2 of the cases because you had people working making announcements together, whether it's the federal and provincial government in every region of the province working together. We're not going to simply make unilateral announcements on the provinces. Those decisions are made collectively. That's what a partnership is all about. And I suspect that if I started to make announcements unilaterally here, my BlackBerry would start to go off and it would be the provincial minister calling to give me heck. I made an announcement with Premier McGuinty on Friday. I didn't announce it before I got there. We announced it together. That's what the province asked for, and that's what I asked for. And they honoured and respected that, and I think that's good news. One of the biggest accountability mechanisms in all of this funding is you have to work with we want to work with the provinces and territories. We want to work with municipalities. So we'll work constructively in the case of your riding with the McGuinty government, and I have absolutely no doubt that we will not be able to come to an agreement expeditiously on funds from the stimulus fund with them, but it involves cooperation and partnership, and that's how it has always been done, and that's how we intend to proceed at this time. I have had a good number of members of Parliament present projects in their constituencies. I have, whether those be on the government or the opposition side of the House. I'm constantly having members of Parliament put proposals on my desk that we take back to the department and review. I don't think the McGuinty government is going to cooperate into anything that is untoward or isn't of high ethical standards. Neither do I think the Doer government would, the MacDonald government, the Campbell government. That's the biggest accountability mechanisms there. We're only 1/3 partners in these projects. We need to work with provinces and municipalities, and that's a great what I would call check and balance on the process. We are making record investments in infrastructure, of big projects and small ones, and we can be proud of that. It will move quickly, but it will never move as quickly as people would like. We are committed, though, to make things happen for beginning in this construction season.
I think Brian Jean has a quick point. And thank you for working with our Premier.
And a half minute might do the trick, Mr. Jean.
Thank you very much. 2 questions, Mr. Minister. First is, would you ever permit your department to issue a blank check of any kind in relation to funding that belongs to the taxpayer?
They couldn't if I wanted them to.
The next, I did some research.
All the Treasury Board rules and guidelines would not allow that, even if I wanted it to.
Excellent.
Which I don't.
The faster we invest money in this current situation, I did some research on that, and I found that the faster that we as a government invest money in infrastructure in this country, the more quickly we actually stall and reverse the global economic downturn. The less expensive it is to build, the better return on investment for taxpayers, less time the unemployed stay unemployed in this country, and a better quality of life. Are there any other advantages to get this money out the door as quickly as humanly possible?
We get Canadians working. The sooner we make these investments, the sooner we get the benefits of the investments. So if it's public transit, we get cleaner air and less congestion sooner, in addition to getting people employed. If we invest in a new convention centre, we can get up our tourism numbers. We get the investment sooner. we get the benefits of the infrastructure more expeditiously. I think that's a positive thing. Clean water. We can, the sooner we can get wastewater treatment plants, we can stop dumping secondary raw sewage into our lakes, rivers, and oceans. And many of these projects will last for decades and decades and decades. So this is an opportunity to work constructively with our partners, and we're committed to doing that. Mr. Chair, I've enjoyed this hour, as has my officials. We were asked to come for an hour, and my officials, and we appreciate the opportunity on such short notice. I have no doubt you might have us back again, and you never know.
It's likely that we will, but I can't speak for the whole team on the committee. But I did want to introduce the three officials that were good enough to come with you this morning. Mr.
Also, there.
I know, and I made him. Sorry, it was my error. It's actually Treasury Board officials who will be
appreciate that.
Be at the desk. Mr. Louis Ranger, Deputy Head; John Forster, ADM Policy; Carol Beal, ADM Program Operations. Thank you for coming. What we'll do now is suspend for about 1 minute while we reboot the witnesses. You ready to go? Call the meeting back to order, colleagues. Our witnesses now are from the Treasury Board Secretariat. The subject matter now is more focused. We're looking at vote 35, which is the $3 billion stimulus package. And so we're essentially, in a formal way, looking at the government estimates, and keeping in mind we will have at least one additional meeting next week, which will continue with this. So having said, I want to welcome the witnesses, thank them for coming. We're here for about an hour. We have Alistair Smith, Assistant Secretary, Expenditure Management Sector, Kelly Gillis, Assistant Secretary, Corporate Services Sector, Brian Pagan, Executive Director, Expenditure Operations and Estimates Division, and Dan Doniger, Executive Director, Labor Relations and Compensation Operations. So that sounds like a lot of expertise. So I'll go immediately. Oh, do you have an opening statement? Ms. Gillis, go ahead.
Yes, we do. Bonjour, Monsieur le Président. Je m'appelle Kelly Gillis. Je suis secrétaire adjointe.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Kelly Gillis. I am the Assistant Secretary at the Corporate Services Sector at the Treasury Board Secretariat. I have several departmental colleagues with me today who will assist in responding to your questions. We are here today to answer any questions you may have on the main estimates 2009-2010 for the Treasury Board Secretariat and the Canada Public Service Agency, which is referred to in these main estimates by its old name, the Public Service Human Resources Management Agency of Canada. As you are likely aware, effective March 2nd, 2009, the Canada Public Service Agency and the parts of the Treasury Board Secretariat that deal with pensions and benefits, labor relations and compensation were consolidated into a new Office of the Chief Human Resources Officer. This office has a mandate to make human resources management across the public service more effective and reduce overlap and duplication of roles. This office will be housed within the Treasury Board Secretariat.
Total budgetary requirements for the Treasury Board Secretariat of $7.7 billion. It is important to note that $5.5 billion of this relates to central government-wide votes. No TBS expenditures will be incurred against these votes. Instead, funding will be utilized to increase the votes of other departments in accordance with the wording approved by Parliament in the Appropriation Act. A significant new vote for $3 billion of this $5.5 billion is Vote 35, Budget Implementation Initiatives. This vote is a one-time only vote which has been introduced to facilitate the timely implementation of Budget 2009 initiatives for which there are immediate cash requirements in advance of supplementary estimates. It will allow Treasury Board ministers to allocate funds for Budget 2009 initiatives between April 1st and June 30th. Any funds that are not allocated from this vote by June 30th would lapse. Apart from these central votes, a further $2.1 billion relates to the administration and payments to various insurance, pension, and benefit programs that the Secretariat administers on behalf of other government departments. Expenditures are incurred against this vote within the Treasury Board Secretariat, and anticipated expenditures have increased by $242 million over last year's main estimates as a result of increased costs and volumes for the public service healthcare plan, provincial payroll taxes, disability and dental plans. The remaining program expenditure vote of $175 million represents the funding for organizations and employees who support the Secretariat's central agency role of contributing to a government that is well managed, accountable, and whose resources are allocated to achieve results. This vote has increased by approximately $10 million since last year, primarily to fund costs for ongoing pay equity litigation, compensation adjustments for collective agreements, and the creation of enhanced corporate services support to the Secretariat. We would be pleased to address any questions that the committee may have on these estimates today and to provide further detailed information to the committee that it may need to complete its review and analysis. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I'll just point out to colleagues, normally on estimates, we would lead off with a minister, and Treasury Board President Taves is attending on Tuesday. And committees don't usually seek political accountability from officials, but officials are usually a wonderful source of information. And I know that officials here will be a big help to us today on these issues. So I'll look to Mr. McTague to lead off for 8 minutes.
Madam Gillis, thank you very much. It is Treasury Board, and so as Treasury Board critic, I guess my real question, you refer to this as being a significant new vote. How significant, from a precedent-setting point of view, in the history of our Parliament is this allocation.
Okay. I'll ask Alistair Smith to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. This is a unique central vote. We, of course, use central votes for other purposes, including contingencies, carry forward, pay list, and for other purposes. But this is a one-time only vote, which would be used for a very limited time and would expire at the end of June. So it is unique in that respect.
The Minister for Infrastructure and Transport just told us that whatever is proposed in the $3 billion, and I'll get to the list in just a moment, whatever is proposed in there will meet Treasury Board guidelines. Can you provide for us what, in fact, if he doesn't know or won't tell, and you don't know or cannot tell, how do we know there's going to be implementation and proper procedure followed here under Treasury Board guidelines?
Well, there's actually no difference in the way we would treat an item that would be charged to the central vote than supplementary estimates A items, for example. So all of these items would be required to pass all the due diligence tests at Treasury Board. They would require approval by Treasury Board ministers. They would need to be in conformity with the Financial Administration Act, with Treasury Board policies, with internal audit and evaluation. They will be audited. They will be reported. So all aspects of due diligence are followed here.
Yeah, due diligence they'll be audited after the fact. I'm talking about what you know in advance.
Well, actually, we've already been in discussion with the Auditor General and internal audit. And we now have internal audit committees with external members in all departments. Have already started to conduct due diligence.
We are looking to find out if we can get an idea of a comprehensive list of what and where that $3 billion is going to be spent. Can you or anyone there provide us any light as to where that money is to be spent? I appreciate it's a central vote. It's a block chunk of money and not an insignificant amount. Does anybody know there where this is going?
Well, I think we can say this, that when you look at Chapter 3 of the budget, you have the entire Economic Action Plan in Chapter 3. The Budget Implementation Act contains a number of specific measures, and the remainder will either be in Sub-A or will be in the central vote. And if I might say one more thing, the central vote is a bridge to supplementary estimates, so it allows money to flow as of April the 1st if you approve interim supply. And some items indeed may receive their first installment from the central vote and the next installment in supplementary estimates.
Chair, if you would, I'd like Ms. Hall Finley take the rest of it. A few minutes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We continue to have some challenge with the idea of the speed of the flow and a continued lack of understanding of the specifics of where that money would go. So I appreciate that this is a bridge to spending, but the whole point of this is to spend right away. If the money is to be spent right away, I, for one, and I think a whole lot of other parliamentarians would expect that there be some knowledge about where that money would be going. We only have a few weeks to deal with, and so we asked the minister earlier today if he had a list, and after some effort, finally got acknowledgement that indeed he does have a long list of projects ready to go. Is that your understanding as well, that there is internally a list of items that will see this money very quickly?
Okay.
Could I address the two questions that I hear, one being the speed, and if I could just start with that. Normally, in a normal year, cash would not flow until December. And last year we made a change. We introduced supplementary estimates A in June, and actually cash can now flow, assuming we have supplementary estimates again. A passed in June. Cash can flow in June. In this particular case, with the passage of interim supply, cash can actually flow in April for those items which have gone through the procedure I just outlined, the due diligence procedure, and have Treasury Board approvals. There is no such list until Treasury Board actually approves these allocations. So these allocations cannot be, funding could not apply, money could not be allocated until April in any case with interim supply. So there are eligible items, and those eligible items in Chapter 3 are those which are not in the BIA, the Budget Implementation Act, but which are ready to go early from the rest of Chapter 3. So I don't want to be any more specific than that, because I think any list that would be provided could only be at very best indicative, and it still requires all the due diligence and approvals by Treasury Board ministers.
If I may pursue this, though, I'm a bit confused, because we're being told that no money will flow unless all of the due diligence has been done on any particular project. Mm-hmm. But the purpose of this is to ask us to allow this to have the money flow very quickly. You don't do due diligence on a project that quickly. I mean, we have the Building Canada Fund, for example, which has been absolutely dismal in getting money out the door. There has to be some. We're only dealing with a few weeks now, so I'm assuming that, given that due diligence does take a little while, given that the request for this would suggest that there is, in fact, an opportunity to spend money starting right away, mm-hmm. How could there not be a pretty good idea of what projects are in the works and, I would think, ready to go?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are two, if I can distinguish between top-ups to existing programs where you have terms of reference, a functioning program that's been in place for some time. It's quite easy to get the final approvals. That's quite different from new programs, which may require longer. So the first allocations could start in April. They may well continue through towards the end of June. You have to understand our internal process as well. For Supplementary Estimates A, we shut the door on April the 2nd. We need that much time to process them for supplementary estimates in June. So in fact, there will be items that will not be ready for supplementary estimates, will not make that April 2 deadline, may come in a little bit later in April or in May, and which would have gone through the full due diligence and would be ready for funding. So it's a period from April 1 to June 30th that's important for us, for money to flow in that period.
But even if it's a top-up, and that I understand, if you don't have to undergo a series of due diligence investigations and review of a project, because we all know that takes a long time. You're topping up a program or an existing project. I understand that. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Why would we not know what those are at this point in time if we're actually expecting that money to be flowing in a few weeks?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I say, we do know what's in Chapter 3. It's a long list of items. I think the Minister Baird may have said, and I didn't have the benefit of hearing him, I'm sure he talked about infrastructure programs that would be available for the construction season. So there are some elements there that I think one could guess at. I just do not want to be guessing before ministers have made decisions.
That's it for time.
Thank you.
Madame Bourgeois, pour 8 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Madame, Messieurs, bonjour.
Good afternoon. Firstly, can you tell me, in the documentation that has been circulated, can you tell me the difference between vote 5 and vote 35?
Vote 5 is a vote for contingency purposes. The vote wording deals with miscellaneous, urgent or unforeseen items. There's a limit of $750 million for the vote, and departments use it as a line of credit essentially under approvals from Treasury Board, have to repay the vote. So at the end of the year, it's zero. In this particular case, in the case of Treasury Board Vote 35, the charges to that vote would be simply allocations. They would not be repaid to the vote. We don't want to continue to maintain a $3 billion fund. It's for a particular bridge financing purpose only, to supplementary estimates. Okay. Those are the essential differences.
Alors, si je comprends bien,
so if I understand correctly, The two amounts, the $750 million and the $3 billion, are respective amounts of money that the minister or the Treasury Board can draw from for projects, for arbitrary projects that are chosen. You do not have to provide any justification for that money to be used. Is that right?
And I'll ask my colleague, Mr. Pagan, to describe more of the Treasury Board Vote 5 procedure. But for Vote 35, the items must be budget initiatives, so they must be in the January 27th budget. So they are already confined to that budget. We also make other requirements internally. They must satisfy a cash flow requirement. If they can wait until supplementary estimates, that's fine. They will be in supplementary estimates A. If they're ready, they pass the due diligence tests, and there's a cash flow requirement for the department to move forward, they can be charged to the central vote. And if I could just add one more element of perspective here. There's a lot of funding in that budget. It would be unreasonable to expect departments to be able to essentially cash manage and deliver those initiatives this fiscal year without some initial funding. So there's a rationale for this. Otherwise, if you compare it to the past, and if I just take a moment of time, Mr. Chair, if you compare it to the past, departments would not have the ability to receive cash through supplementary estimates until December. So that's fine in a normal year when you are trying to bring in a normal budget. You can actually cash manage through until December. But if you're bringing in a large budget like this, and of course there's a need for this budget for timeliness, it's unreasonable to expect that departments will be able to make headway on such an ambitious and important program without some upfront funding. And that's why, of course, we have SUPS-A in June, but it's also why we need the central vote.
OK. Les fonds qui sont prévus.
The funds that are available under the implementation budget votes cannot be dispersed before the 1st of April. So after the 30th of June, how will that money be spent?
Well, the allocations have to occur within the period from the passage of interim supply, therefore it can't be before the beginning of April, till the end of June. And then the allocations are provided to departments in the same way that supplementary estimates are provided to departments, and they're able to spend once they receive the funds. So they could receive the funds any time in that period between the beginning of April and the end of June, depending on whether they passed all the tests.
Le ministre qui est venu nous voir tantôt.
Earlier, the minister told us that, as regards infrastructure, there is a lot of money. In fact, there is even more money than needed for the number of projects requested, and we asked him if he could be flexible. For example, the mayor of one of my cities said that we need some time before being able to propose a project. He told me that there was no money. And before presenting a project, that budgets have to be drawn up, estimates made, plans formulated, and that he was unable to access the fund that the minister was boasting about because not all cities are interested in borrowing money from the federal government. So what's going to happen? Before a project can be approved, there is 4 to 6 months of planning involved. So what happens to those cities? Will they lose funding for those projects?
I believe we are talking about a 2-year plan here, and there will indeed be funding provided throughout the 2 years to municipalities and provinces. There's tremendous, it's a large plan which includes federal infrastructure spending as well as by Public Works and others, as well as Infrastructure Canada spending. So there's a wide variety of different elements in this budget implementation plan. In some cases, I'm sure that it will take time for municipalities and provinces to access the funds that are in the broad infrastructure plan. Indeed, I think the Building Canada Fund is a 7-year plan in any case. But to the extent possible, I think the Minister of Finance was very clear in the budget, and since that, to the extent possible, for good economic reasons, we need to try to accelerate as much as we can the spending early on, when indeed the economy is at its weakest points. So there's a good rationale for trying to move up as much as we can of that spending.
Ouais, mais il faut pas mélanger.
All right, but we can't confuse a Building Canada initiative and the $3 billion in supplementary estimates that the government wants to implement.
It's true that the Minister's already spoken about this, so I don't want to add much more on this, but it's true the Building Canada Fund is a 7-year plan, and there are, I think, Infrastructure Canada administers and Transport administers 14 different infrastructure funds. So there are different funds that can benefit from additional funding earlier, and that's there's still a good reason for accelerating that spending as opposed to leaving it on the normal path, if I might put it that way.
J'ai encore une minute?
No.
Do I have 1 minute remaining? No, I'm sorry, you don't.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming this morning. Is it the afternoon now? I appreciate you coming to bring testimony. I think there has been a lot of misunderstanding. Certainly there's been a lot of discussion surrounding this $3 billion vote 35. I think we are getting a little bit closer to some clarification today, but we certainly want to ensure that there's no misunderstanding leaving this meeting. My understanding is that this $3 billion vote is being brought forward so that items out of the budget might be able to be spent on. Is it your assurance to us that nothing, no money in this vote could be spent outside the parameters of the vote in which has already been accepted by Parliament?
That's correct. I mean, the budget vote, the budget initiatives vote wording says very clearly this is for budget initiatives only, for the budget 2009 initiatives specifically.
So when there is this notion out there that somehow this is a blank check, I guess it's only as blank as the budget is.
It's not a blank check. And as I understand it, the budget has been approved in principle, at least.
Yeah.
So it is for those initiatives that are in the budget.
So the minister, no minister, could decide unilaterally that he was going to now build a new program to print golf balls for different members of Parliament with their names and their pictures on it, and distribute that to different members of Parliament, and say that we're going to now use a portion of that money for that. Is that my understanding? There's no way that something like that could happen because there is no initiative within the budget to do something like that.
It would only apply to initiatives that were in the budget and nothing else.
Is there any amount of due diligence that would be lost by spending the money now rather than spending the money later on?
We do not believe so. In fact, we're treating these items the same as we would treat supplementary supplementary estimates A items, which would go in June. So it's the same due diligence that's being applied.
As you have pointed out, and as the minister before you pointed out, the desire of the monies that are included in this budget, the desire is that those monies be spent now or as soon as possible, so that we might be able to stimulate the economy, as you have spoken about. If this $3 billion was not included in this vote, would there be as much availability or as much ability for the government to expedite the spending initiatives within the budget in the short term?
Definitely not.
So essentially, the idea of getting shovels in the ground and hammers in the hands of folks and projects initiated is dependent on this $3 billion inclusion.
Certainly to have funds flowing from April, yes. Otherwise, it will be the latter half of June at the very best, maybe into July before the funding would flow.
So ministers cannot make up programs that are outside the parameters of the budget and utilize this $3 billion.
No.
Full due diligence is going to continue to be taken care of. I think this brings a lot of clarification, and I guess most importantly, without this money, initiatives from the budget won't be able to move as quickly as if this money was available.
That's correct.
Well, I certainly think that answers many of the misunderstandings, and possibly my colleague from the Liberal is now assured that, in fact, this money is not going to be spent in areas that she did not vote in favor of it having been spent. I guess it'll be interesting to see if, in fact, that is the fact. I'm going to change topics simply because I think we've now come to full clarity on that particular issue. When Madame Barados was before our committee, she brought to our attention, I don't know if certainly this is outside the estimates discussion, but maybe I'll just ask and see if it's on your radar screen, and I think we'll have a discussion at some point down the road. But there was a concern about something that she called classification creep within the different departments. I'm not sure if there's anybody here today that would be able to speak about that particular issue and her concerns surrounding that.
I give that to the Public Service Commission, okay, and have them respond to some information regarding that question.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Good. Well, thank you, Mr. Warkentin. Now we'll go to Mr. Martin for an 8-minute round.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, witnesses. Both the Prime Minister in answers to questions in question period and Treasury Board officials have invoked the Auditor General in their response, I guess, as a way to assure Canadians that I think hers is the most trusted office in the country, maybe second to the Treasury Board and Secretariat. But I'm not clear what specific approval or validation the Auditor General has given to this process, because in our reading we find previous Auditors General and perhaps even this one being quite critical of the Vote 5 process in the pre-approval of spending that's not specific. What specifically did this Auditor General say that approved of this Vote 35, this extraordinary vote?
Mr. Martin, I can't say what specifically the Auditor General has said on this. The Auditor General has been consulted, and we expect that the Auditor General will continue to audit the entire budget implementation process, and all the documents that she needs and her colleagues need for that. Those audits will be provided to them, and we can assure you that we full cooperation in that respect with the Auditor General. But on Treasury Board Vote 5, we have had in the past discussions with the Auditor General on the use of the vote, and we have responded to the views of the Auditor General and indeed the views of parliamentary committees through guidelines that we've put in place and changes in the wording for Treasury Board Vote 5 and the way we use the vote. So I think I don't think the two things should be linked.
Well, But also, we don't know what the Auditor General said. I mean, maybe we have to call the Auditor General as a witness. There's a big difference between having consulted with the Auditor General and having the Auditor General approve of this whole process, which is, if you read the answers in question period from the Prime Minister, they would have the country believe that Sheila Fraser thinks this is A-OK. She may have said in that consultation that she has grave concerns about this particular vote.
Well, Mr. Martin, I just do not want to put, I don't want to try to speak for the Auditor General on this, so
No.
that's the nature of my response. I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to say what you had to say.
I wouldn't ask you to, but I also don't think it's really proper for anyone to let the public believe that that this has the Auditor General's good housekeeping seal of approval, because we don't know that. A previous Auditor General said about a vote 5, the basic principle at the root of our concerns is simple. Spending by departments must have the prior sanction of Parliament, and this is not the case. I mean, you're saying that everything in a vote 5 has the prior sanction of Parliament. In 2002, the Auditor General had grave concerns about the process.
Mr. Martin, with respect, we've had a contingency vote, Treasury Board vote 5, for, I believe, well over 100 years.
Yes, but
almost
since 68, we find serious, every year the Auditor Generals find fault with the process. Since 68, we went that far back.
Well, I'll perhaps let my colleague, Mr. Pagan, who is more expert on this vote than me, comment. But we've worked very hard with committees and with the Auditor General to meet the need for both a contingency vote, having the flexibility of a contingency vote to deal with urgent situations that face Canadians or unforeseen circumstances, and the needs of the committees for clear rules and guidance on how this vote is used. And in recent years, I'm not aware of any additional criticism of the vote wording by the Auditor General. But perhaps if I could ask my colleague, Mr. Pagan.
Actually, maybe I can do that
okay.
On my own
Sure.
after the fact, Mr. Pagan. I could see you personally. But another concern I have is the sheer volume of activity that you're going to be asked to undertake in the coming months. If it normally takes 2 to 3 months to have a proposal approved by Treasury Board, and this volume of activity is going to be squeezed in above and beyond all the normal activity of Treasury Board from April 1st to June 30th, don't you have a huge logistical human resources problem, if nothing else, if you're going to apply the same due diligence? How in God's name are you going to cope with that volume of activity?
Well, Mr. Martin, there's no question that the entire civil service and all departments that are involved in budget implementation are working extremely hard to bring this budget to fruition. So there's a tremendous burden without question, on all public servants who are charged with these responsibilities. But again, this period from April to June is a startup period. So this is not the end of the process by any stretch.
No, but that's when the approvals will take place. Business cases will have to be put towards 2 Treasury Board personnel who have to assess those business cases.
But we're talking about a $40 billion program over 2 years, and this is the $3 billion startup part of it. So
yes,
there's a huge amount of more work to be done after that.
I understand. With my last moment, can you explain the difference? 3/12 is the normal request. We're asking for 11/12. Can you run by me again so I understand the significance of that difference?
Yes. Well, normally in interim supply, we ask for 3/12 to start up, and in fact, Parliament typically does approve something in the order of $25 billion of spending before committees go into detail on the plans. Every year, we do ask for some increases beyond 3/12 for certain departments for certain needs, up to 11/12. In this particular case, we're asking for 11/12, which is the maximum we can ask for, to allow for a fund of about $2.7 billion of that $3 billion to be available in April, and the remainder on full supply in June.
See, that's what worries people in my party, is that when it was 3/12, it was a leap of faith. We'd approve that, go ahead and get rolling with that 3/12. You still had 9/12 that would be under better scrutiny. Now you're asking for 11/12. a leap of faith on the 11/12, and that's where the term blank check, etc., comes from, that my Liberal colleagues are using. We share those concerns.
Well, these are for items that are in the budget that has been approved.
But
so
not just Chapter 3. We were told in the briefing it would be only Section 3 of the budget. Now we learn it can be anywhere in the budget. Is that true?
Well, I think the vast majority is in the Economic Action Plan, which is really in Chapter 3. It's a very large chapter.
But is that 11/12 spending limited to Chapter 3, or can it
Those are the
find itself anywhere in the budget?
That's the guidance that we have provided departments, that it will be Chapter 3.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now, colleagues, we have to be out of here just before the top of the hour, and we have two other individuals who want to ask questions. I'm going to arbitrarily cut the time to 2.5 minutes each. I'll be very strict. I have two questions myself, and we have a routine motion to pass. Ms. Hall-Findlay, 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes. To you.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify just a couple things. Understand that the $3 billion applies to buckets already in the budget. So we understand this isn't an additional $3 billion blank check. It is a request that of the large amount budgeted, the request in Vote 35 is to have $3 billion of that not subject to the normal process of the mains and estimates, the normal oversight process that one would go through.
I'm sorry if I may correct you there. It is subject to the normal process we follow in approving items for, say, supplementary estimates. There's no difference. And indeed, we may see some items where we withdraw on the central vote for the first installment and then into Subs A or Subs B for remaining funding.
Okay.
So it's the same process.
Oh, all right. Then if that process is gone through, then once the due diligence is done internally, then there will be a knowledge of a project will actually be approved or not. Yes? And that therefore the money would start to flow.
That's correct.
Right. And at that point, then that information should be made available to parliamentarians, yes?
That's correct. And all allocations from this vote will be communicated to Parliament.
Okay. So we will repeat that the desire here is to have information and have knowledge of what those projects are once that due diligence is done. I will also ask about the to the extent that any of this $3 billion would go to infrastructure projects. There is already our information of the $4.6 billion that was allocated to infrastructure projects for 08-09. At best, $1 billion of that has been spent, which would leave a good $3 billion left that has already been approved for infrastructure spending. How does that relate to this additional request for the blank approval of the $3 billion?
Well, our figures are not the same as yours, I don't think.
I would love to have more information because we're not getting the information that we've been requesting.
I think the point you're making is if there's funding left over in any one year, let's say fiscal year 8-9, the one that we're just ending, can that money be used in 9-10? And the argument in general is no. Money lapses each year. There are possibilities of reprofiling, but those require the Department of Finance's approval because they do affect the fiscal plan and do affect our deficit numbers.
Okay,
and no automatic.
That's time. That's time. Just save up your other question. We may have additional time later. Monsieur Laframboise, 2.5 minutes only.
Monsieur le Président.
My question is straightforward. The Minister of Finance said that mistakes will be made. I'd like to know, where could the mistakes happen? $3 billion is being made available sooner than planned for. Take, for example, under the items for transportation, there is money set aside for targeted infrastructure. We're talking about $1.6 billion. So with the $3 billion, you will be able to post $500,000 immediately. Is that right? $500 million.
you're focusing on one individual program and saying a certain portion of that funding would be up front if indeed it's approved. I think that's roughly correct, that this is really the first installment on some of the programs that would be ready. Now, the program would have to be ready. And we have to meet all the tests that we described earlier. But the general point about mistakes, I think I don't want to add any further to what Minister Flaherty or other ministers have said.
Non, mais c'est parce que je veux comprendre. Là. Je sais pas que c'est vous qui faites les...
I'm just trying to understand. I'm not saying that you're the one who's going to be making the mistakes. Generally speaking, I'm right. If a program such as the Targeted Infrastructure Program has already been planned for, $500 million will have been spent, and authorization goes to the minister. Is that right?
You're talking about an existing program on which there has already been some funding provided, and therefore an additional installment of funding would be available through the central vote. Am I correct?
Mais si c'est un nouveau programme...
But if we're talking about a new program, because for you an old program is already legitimate, but if dealing with a new program, there is an amount of money that's going to be allocated to that program.
Well, there will be the new program. Of course, there will be terms and conditions for that program. There'll be a Treasury Board approval of that program. That's less likely to be ready early than a program that's already currently being used. But indeed, and so it may not work that the funding from April 1 to June 30th would be available for that particular program. So it's more likely for those programs that are ready to go than for those that still require work to be defined.
Thank you. That's 2 minutes. It's 2.5 minutes. Now, I have to be strict here. I'm going to let Ms. Hall-Findlay ask a question, no preamble, and then I will ask a question at the same time without an answer. You can answer both. Ms. Hall-Findlay, you got a question? We're running out of time.
I go back to the potential lapsing of what may be a $3 billion amount in infrastructure spending, and I will you can answer this, but is it possible that the $3 billion will have been not spent on infrastructure projects, possibly to help the bottom line for the 08-09 year, but then we're now being asked to rush $3 billion, which could very easily have been invested in infrastructure that over the past year, and even money allocated the year before, that money has not been spent. Is it possible that now, if it does not get spent, will show a better bottom line for 08-09, but then we're now being asked to approve a blank for another $3 billion?
Okay, there's one question. Second question. Please tell us how, in relation to Vote 25, the $3 billion, how and when Parliament will be formally notified or shown, project by project, how that money is spent. Is there something filed in Parliament? Is the minister make a statement in Parliament? Is there a financial document tabled in Parliament? Tell us how that will happen, if you can.
Okay, on the first question, I can't confirm that expected lapse number that you were using for Infrastructure Canada. Could the money have been better spent in 08, 09, 09, 10? I think that's a good question indeed. The economic situation has certainly deteriorated, and that's since in the last, from the fourth quarter on. So there's more of an imperative, I think, to use the money in fiscal 9-10 than there might have been in 8-9. So that's certainly a factor to bear in mind. We can't simply roll the money over into 9-10. On reporting, we certainly will, as a normal matter, report on all allocations from central votes in supplementary estimates. So in supplementary estimates A, to the extent that we have information at that point in time, we will be reporting in supplementary estimates A. We will certainly be reporting in supplementary estimates B, and we're looking at possibilities. And as you know, there are quarterly reports being tabled in March, in June, in September and December. In addition, we're looking at the logistics of more frequent reporting. on these allocations.
Well, thank you very much for those concise answers. I know colleagues have more questions. We will have Treasury Board with us on Tuesday, and I have a routine motion. I'm going to read it. I'll ask for a member to move it. The witnesses, thank you very much. You may withdraw at this time. Colleagues, continuing with that committee business, that the standing committee, well, your subcommittee met on Thursday, March 5 this morning to consider the business of the committee and agreed to make the following recommendation: that the Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates meet March 12, 2009 according to the following schedule: to study the main estimates 2009-10 under Privy Council and the appointment of Patricia J. Hassard. Do I have a mover? Do I have a mover? Mr. Martin. Is that agreed? Are we agreed? This is our future business, colleagues.
Mr. Chairman, are you suggesting that was discussed this morning? Because I don't remember that discussed this morning.
No, this was discussed at a previous meeting and agreed to, but the clerk has asked us to pass the motion so that the witnesses who are attending have that record of our order of reference. We've agreed to this previously. Do I have a... Colleagues, if we don't pass this, we're not going to meet for this meeting. I have a mover. I'll put the question. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Is there any other business we have to transact today? There is, seeing none? Oh, Mr. McTagg, other business today?
In the interest of the motion you just passed, again, I would ask and the committee to at least advise at least a Liberal member than the chair of these meetings. It leaves us in an awful situation.
The steering committee meetings. Correct. Good point. We'll see if we can rectify that.
Record again,
Mr. Anders?
Yeah, I just want to state this for fact, Mr. Chairman. This morning, we were missing a Liberal member. We were missing an NDP member. I do not appreciate having extra meetings in my life. I would prefer to have steering business dealt with here at the committee as a group. So I'm not in favor of having extra meetings in my life, especially if we're going to have other members not attend.
Mr. Chair,
this is not a debate, and I'm going to cut out. No, I'm sorry, Mr. McTagg. I just want to point out to Mr. Anders that there was not missing a Liberal member. I was there, and I am the member on the subcommittee. There may have been one party who wasn't able to be there, but that was concluded. Now, if you have something, Mr. McTagg, that you feel you must put on the record, go ahead.
No, Chair. Simply that in response to Mr. Anders, I think and no reasonable person would expect that you could attend a meeting that you weren't informed of. We did ask, Chair, as you'll recall, through your discretion, it was understood that there would be at least an informal invitation given to Liberal members, recognizing, of course, the unique nature of the composition of this meeting. I have no difficulty with attending meetings as long as I'm told about them.
Well, we'll take this up at discussion among ourselves to get this business sorted out. But I do appreciate the efforts of members to work collegially. We can adjourn now.